You're watching Spotlight, a production of Culture in Maine, York's cultural showcase. I'm Carla Christopher, poet, publisher, and producer. Join me, along with editor, musical guru, and video extraordinaire Jay Schmuck, plus wild outdoorsman and videographer, along with technical extraordinaire Cliff Kern, and all of our friends as we go behind the scenes and get into the underground of what's really going on in the arts and cultural amazing explorations that are happening in South Central Pennsylvania. You'll see everything from art to music to dance to theater, and you'll also get to meet the people who really make it happen, find out how and why, along with some great studio performances, some amazing on-the-street footage. You'll also get the real story, and that's what we're here to shine a spotlight on. Let's go. My next guest was one who I met actually at a poetry night downtown, and she just got up in the open mic and stopped the entire room. I'm telling you, people were applauding and cheering, and they were going, "Ooh, go ahead, girl, I didn't know you could do that." Now, I love an undiscovered, untapped gem, but Ikysha Jones, she's what the poetry scene in York has been waiting for. So I knew I had to get her on the show to share some of her work, some of her thoughts, and some of her story, which is incredibly powerful with York, because it's not just in her artistic words that we can find inspiration, but in the very deeply personal words that she shares just about what she has overcome to continue being, living out, and making art. That's where the real inspiration comes. So I'm glad that you could make it today.
Me too. That was beautiful.
Carve You know, it's easy when I get inspired by people, and every time I have seen and heard you read, I not only just love watching you, but I love watching people around you and watching people respond to you, and that feeling of here is someone who's being honest, who's genuine. It's not about the dollars, it's not about the polish, it's not about getting just the attention. It really is about speaking from the overflow of the heart and about telling a story. And I love that. Now, have you always been writing poetry, or did that become a new way for you to start expressing yourself when I first started hearing you read, which wasn't that long ago?
I started writing in 8th grade.
8th grade?
Yes. And throughout high school, I always had a goal of a poem a day, but it would greatly exceed that.
A poem a day? You were knocking out a poem a day. Go ahead, girl.
Unfortunately, I got with somebody who did not want to see me grow, and kind of went to, deprive me of my gifts, I should say, and I was weak, I allowed it. And upon me trying to rediscover myself, and I had to think what made me happy. Writing made me happy. So I started writing again, and I got on Facebook in 2014, and I would share on there, and a lot of people would encourage me, like, you should read these, or you should put these in the book. I've never really had anybody that encouraged me, or I've never really shared my words with anybody, so it was humbling. So I went out and started trying to find where the poetry scenes are, and I had a coworker that sent me to your place on King's Court.
Yay.
And it was like the best thing I've ever been to. The energy in there was awesome. It was very comfortable. I'm very energy bass felt. I have to feel the energy in the room before I speak. So it was very invigorating experience. It was just a relief because I'm very shy. I'm very introverted. Either I'm stuttering or sometimes I talk too fast. And so getting up and reading is kind of like I get to slow down and
That's so really interesting. And I hear that from a lot of artists, that you would think that if you are a performer, that means you are an extrovert who just loves being out there on stage. But artists are also people that feel very intensely and that are incredibly sensitive to what's happening around them and to what energy other people are putting out, because that's how they are able to create that art, right? They're able to see things and feel things so intensely that they have to create pieces of art around them. So I see a lot of really deeply introverted, very shy, very personal people, but how do you push past that? How do you overcome that anxiety or that that personal sense of struggle to get to the point where you can share your work?
I told myself, you're never going to be ready, so you have to just go for it.
It's never going to feel easy, you just do.
And usually just throwing yourself out there and not rehearsing or not overplaying it in your head is where you can just really give your essence, because you're not rehearsed, you're not overthinking it, and I am a overthinker.
So how do you find the balance then between preparing when you're going to perform, you know, choosing what piece you want to read or getting ready to do that? Because I know that is something else I've seen poets and writers really struggle with. They don't want to overly rehearse to where it feels stilted or theatrical or fake. But if they don't rehearse at all, or if they don't think about what poem they're doing, it can come across seeming unprofessional or even disrespectful to the audience, like you weren't thinking about what you were going to do. You know, how do you determine the right balance for you when you want to read? What's your pre-game prep before you share something?
I honestly don't do anything.
Wow.
I go off, like I said, I go off the energy, and when I'm going through my poems that I have saved in my phone, I kind of go with what jumps out to me. It's like a shared experience with me and the audience, because it's both new. It's new to them hearing, and it's new to me reading. I've never read a poem out loud until I came across your club. Yeah, and again, an invigorating experience. It's very seeing everybody in there and how everybody supports each other and listens. It's you know, we're sharing pieces of our soul. Those are manifestations of our soul. I feel like when we share manifestations of our soul, we are sharing God within us, and that's a form of communing. Sorry. So, you know, some people go to church to commune. Some people maybe go to the bar to commune. It's all communion, but I'm looking for the positive growths. So I'm looking where I can flourish, and just listen to everybody in different styles, and like going down to you has opened my eyes. Like, there's many forms of arts and poetry. And I didn't know there was so many different types of poems. I just always just wrote. Sure. So reading a couple things, and it inspires me. It has inspired some poems. Listening to other artists down there in the King's Courtyard has inspired me to write some things and maybe play with words and really try to, you know, exercise my mind outside of my comfort zones. York, inspired by a friend of mine named Shannon Martin, who was murdered. Is our city a death trap? Our men are being killed by pull triggers and advertised snapback. How do you not violently react back in a city that in 15 minutes you can walk out of and back? But the size of his trap is metropolitan. The coroner is called at least twice a weekend. Funeral homes make bank off of the distraught and emotionally weak, and mothers are cooking dinners to bury their sons in peace. And children are left with no fathers to speak to, and bitterness grows, resentment shows. The cycle doesn't slow, it just gets remixed on the turntables. Same tempo, same melody. And the people keep dancing full capacity. This city doesn't know the definition of unity unless it's to assassinate the character of you and me, or gossip with a smirk about someone's tragedy. York, where's the positivity in our urban communities? All right, this is a short, untitled poem, and it goes, lost in thought, I love to explore. Conversation, dehydration, my cure. Omitting negative penetration, nouns and verbs I prefer to chew and digest. I crap out pronouns and action verbs, then hit the attic and conquest these cobwebs. Yeah, I heard it's better said than done, but I look at this as fun, and nothing from my heart will be unsung. To claim human is to sign up for the race. Being spiritual is when your feet pick up pace. Taking the journey is how you get sweat on your face. Building endurance subtracts a weak embrace. Vulnerability provides a possibility for the ability to be used by the enemy like a utility switch. You're running for your soul. That's the real prize, not a cup made of non-ferrous metals like gold. Our free will has been at stake the moment we arrived at our birthplace. Free will, but yet at birth we already owe a bill? In debt, I regret not knowing this information I'm unaware of still. Capitol Hill bankers and monopolized corporations help fuel the fire that warms the slave nations. But when will we realize we are the bacon? We are the money because in God we trust. To add value to ourselves is a must. They keep deflating us. Let's inflate us. I just want to be heard. And more importantly than do I want to be heard, I want to be understood.
Danny O, musicians love. I don't actually.
She live in Saginaw, down past the seesaw, up off the paw, yeah, can listen to the crow call. Down in Saginaw, she got that Goldsboro draw. She has a weasel skull hanging on the bedroom wall, walking on good road. Met an old toad. He took her to his mossy abode, dimly lit by a fungus that glowed. Down in Saginaw, there ain't nowhere to fall from it. Down in Saginaw, she's in it for the long haul. Down in Saginaw, she got it all, yeah. and fucking Saginaw. She loved the mighty Susquehanna, hanging out with her friend Savannah, cranking up that old Santana, wearing nothing but a red bandana. Down in Saginaw, she got that Goldsboro draw. She has a silk shawl, handmade in Nepal, right down in Saginaw. Up off the paw, yeah, you listen to the crows calling. Down in Saginaw, there ain't nowhere to fall. Down in Saginaw, she's in it for the long haul. Down in Saginaw, she got it all, yeah. We're Saginaw. Took her to his mossy abode, dimly lit by a fungus that glowed. She loved the mighty Susquehanna, hanging out with her friend Savannah, cranking up that old Santana, wearing nothing but a red bandana. Down in Saginaw, she got that Goldsboro draw. She has a weasel skull a bedroom wall, right down in Saginaw. There ain't nowhere to fall. Down in Saginaw, she's in it for the long haul. Down in Saginaw, she got it all, yeah, in Saginaw.
The practice technique called yeah. This is the first one. Yeah. Oh, it's something like that. Yeah, so we got. the pipe hand,
right in the shin. And the tearing down the stove was town in. Yeah, you got the yang, baby, I bring the yin. And the tearing down the stove was town in. Let's give it a whirl. We're gonna go for a spin. Yeah, the tear down the stove is town in. Well, it's so good to see you, baby. Where have you been? You got them bedroom eyes and the gypsy grin. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's peaches in the basket, apples in the bin. And tear down the stove is town in. Couch puked in the pisser, too much gin. Yeah, the tear down the stove is town in. gypsy grin. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The man, the myth, the legend. York County's own Danny Ottemiller just performed 2 songs about York County.
And Mike, I mean, what a great dude. Like, he just is always there with support and letting you play music, and his funny Mike Axness, where he's just, he's always funny, but you can't really tell if he's, we all know Mike. He's just an awesome guy who has supported and been a friend to us forever, so.
My next guest today, right here on the corner of Culture in Maine, is our very own hometown hero, a success story that does the heart and the soul good. Jemell Casper Hill is not just a true story of a life changed, of a meaning found. He's also a pretty incredible author who wrote down his amazing story of transformation and self-discovery and turned it into a way to help others that also will inspire change and will keep people making the differences that they can make in our community. And if you've met Casper, you know he spends every day figuring out how to make a difference. We're just happy that he would take a break from saving the world to come hang out on Culture in Maine with us for a little bit and talk about his amazing book that I really wish that every single person in all of Pennsylvania could get their hands on, because it will change your life. Much like I imagine writing it changed yours,
I know,
huh?
thank you. I love that. I love that.
So from DOC to CEO, which I think is just the catchiest title ever. Tell me about what inspired you to write this book.
I knew that the lifestyle that I lived, few come back from. Especially as deep involved as I was in it. And I've been through everything imaginable that a person can come through, that can go through. So I had to share my story with the world, because I know that it's a message that needs to be heard, and that's going to help save lives. Because, like I said, I've been through stuff that I just wasn't cool enough to get myself through. So I knew that my higher power got me through, and I had to share the message.
So now, did you grow up here in York City?
I wasn't born here, but like so many others, I came here with the wrong attitude initially, selling drugs, and I wound up giving them 10 years.
Wow. So how did you end up picking York of all the different places? What brought you here?
Yeah, I have family here, and I had a cousin that actually caught a life sentence here.
Oh, wow.
And through my ignorance, you don't look at when you live in that life, you don't look at the dangers. You think about the money at that time that he was making.
So is that what attracted you
Absolutely.
into the lifestyle of drug selling at first?
Yes.
It was a way.
And when you live in that life, and you may see tragedy happen to someone, but you'll be thinking that's the disease of that addiction, is that lifestyle, because you'll be thinking that happened to him, but that won't happen to me. Until you actually almost in that predicament. And I was actually almost in that same predicament. He got life sentence for a homicide that he didn't physically catch. He was there when they talked about it. Now, I wasn't there when they talked about it, but I got charged with somebody else's homicide.
Oh my God.
And I lost my store and everything. I went to jail and everything.
Now, how old were you when you first started selling drugs, or when you
12.
first got involved in that lifestyle? So, I mean, I know that it's very easy to judge, well, obviously it wasn't worth it. How could you get caught up in that lifestyle? But when I think about my ability to make decisions at the age of 12, I mean, I was still throwing a temper tantrum if I couldn't get the pair of sneakers that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine being faced with that kind of temptation, having those kind of people around me saying, hey, this is what you want to do, trying to, involve me in that lifestyle, showing me this chance. It would sure as heck look a lot more appealing than going to school every day, which felt like it didn't really have a point. I mean, at 12, being caught up now. So by the time that you ended up going to prison, how old were you then?
When I first, because actually I did 5 prison sentences.
5 prison sentences.
Before that bright light came on and I said, you know, enough is enough. But the first time I went to jail, I was like 21.
Still such a baby.
Yes, and I had almost 10 years in the game then. So, you know, for a while I had deep-rooted criminal thinking. And this is why I work hard to help people, because I understand that deep-rooted criminal thinking. Especially when you're blessed. Yeah. Because, like I said, I should have got more time. And because I wasn't getting a lot of time initially, I was saying they didn't give me the kind of time for the money that I was getting.
So it was almost like a job hazard. It was worth it. You're like, I'll do this couple years, and then I can get back out and get back to work.
Yes, if you know what I mean. The first time I went, I did a year, and I'm like, you know, I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars. So for me to go do a year, who cares? But not realizing, you're blessed. And that's what I tell people, you're blessed. But it's, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. And like I said, 5 jail sentences. That's embarrassing now, like the life I live, but it's my journey. I'm thankful today, but then it was like you had to wake up after 5 jail sentences.
So, I mean, after the first didn't turn you around, the second didn't turn you around, the third didn't turn you around, what was it about this last prison sentence that made you say, you know what, I can't do this anymore, I'm done?
I was tired. I had some friends behind the wall that said to me, with the people they called the life installment plan. And they said, you doing the life installment plan. You're
just giving your whole life away in pieces.
In pieces. And I was like, wow, you know, I'm gonna end up either dead or doing life in here, and I never gave myself an honest chance.
Wow.
And that's one of the worst disservices we can do to ourselves, when you leave this earth and you didn't give yourself a chance. And I knew I wasn't stupid, and I had so many people from our community writing me saying, you smarter than this. You know how sometimes people don't want to insult you, so they say stuff like, I'm not going to give you that whole insanity speech, but. Come on now. And then I had people writing me, like my kid's mom at that time had to close up one of the stores. Because when I got arrested in 2011, I had 2 stores on Market Street. And one of the landlords was crying. Because we had just, you know, things was turning around from the 2009, you know, the economic crisis with the whole real estate and everything.
Right.
So his, you know, he was struggling. So, you know, things were just starting to turn around for him. So when I got arrested, he was like he was crying, literally. Right. And I was like, I'm the one doing time. Why is he crying? And I had to stop and think, like, you hurting people other than yourself.
Oh, so that was a real moment of awakening, realizing that here's all these people that love you. They're affected by your going away.
Absolutely.
Here's people that are dependent on your brick and mortar business, people that are depending on you and your skills that you're helping and healing, your kids. You've got all these people that are depending on you.
Yes.
And you just sort of woke up to that. So that was a part of that thinking. When you're talking about that thinking of being kind of stuck on, this is about me, that's part of the thinking you're trying to help people get out of. Exactly,
because, you know, you hurt people. And then my mother wrote me a letter, and it was real short, and she's like one of my best friends, and she said, it was Proverbs 20:17. And she was like, and you know the scripture, because one of the things about me, I always read the Bible. Like I was, you know, God had his hand on my life, but for some reason, I was still selling drugs. So it's kind of like oxymoronic in a way, because it's like, how do you get up and pray in the morning, then go out to sell drugs?
Yeah, how do you do that?
I always did it. I don't. It was the weirdest thing. It was like people used to call me like, you like a drug dealing Christian entrepreneur? What are you? I don't understand, and I'm just like.
But you know what? I mean, again, I feel like it's very easy because of what we see on television. You know, we have this image of a drug dealer that is just this, you know, crazy, crude, you know, constantly gun-toting and cursing and spitting, not realizing that if there are so many people, I mean, the heroin, the opioid epidemic is overwhelming our county. And it is not, you know, the drug addicts that we see on TV. It's our neighbors, our friends, our kids, our fellow students. Well, where are those people getting their drugs from? It's also our neighbors, our friends, our students, our shopkeepers. Drugs have become such a part of our culture. And if you're on the lookout for that TV person from Law and Order, you don't see what's happening right in front of you. And you think, well, I know I'm not that, so, you know, I'm still good.
Yes.
I'm still good. But recognizing, like, what's the real truth? What does the drug game really look like? Is very different than this TV version.
Absolutely. It is. It is. It is. And it's a horrible, horrible game. Like I said, I've been through so much. And, you know, I mentor at 4 different schools. And that's what I fight to teach the kids, like, because they think it's cool.
Yeah.
They think it's cool. I was just with Miss Judy Dixon, Ritter Dixon, and she was
lovely
telling me about
councilwoman.
Yes, yes, and she was telling me about I think it's her nephew or somebody that you know, they try to give them everything, but you know they still be allured by the lifestyle, and that's when I had to tell them that, you know, it has become a culture which is very dangerous for our kids, because you can give a child everything, but they want them cool factors.
Right.
What they think some people in the streets is them cool factors. Like kids now, and they say, you did 10 years? And they be like, that's like, you know, they be giving me
Ooh, that's real hard. But how many albums have we, I mean, I've listened to them in my own car. Like, if you didn't have some prison time, you didn't have real cred to come out and make rap music or hip hop music.
Exactly.
Just like if you didn't have, you know, some fancy clothes or houses, you didn't, you know, your movie star status wasn't legitimate.
Exactly.
It's about, and it's not just in the Black community, it's the white community, it's the Hispanic community. You've got to have big money. You've got to be on cribs. You know, having a good house in the suburbs with a basement that doesn't leak, that's not enough. That's not a dream. You want to have cribs money. You know, it's not enough to have good solid clothes that won't wear out. You've got to be, you know, wearing a Justin Bieber little diamond necklace that's, you know, $20,000 of, you know, a cartoon character hanging around your neck. And that's not the kind of money, that's not the kind of life that comes from working a 9-to-5 job for the most part. So how do you convince kids to look at MTV, to look at TV, and to see all these stars from every genre, every type of art, every race, every culture, making all this crazy money, and say, well, hey, if that luck happens to you, you're blessed, but there's still value in living a life in this community, living a life with a regular house, with regular clothes, driving your Hyundai or your Toyota.
Yes.
I mean, how do you sell that to young people who are spending all their free time watching TV and YouTube?
I think, to be honest with you, for me, I don't believe in telling them that they can't get the house on cribs.
Okay.
But the way you get there, because so many kids think, so especially, like I said, even with me, I'm going to sell this amount of drugs, raise this amount of money so that I can get there. And that's the wrong way of thinking.
It seems like a fast way to get it.
And 99 out of 100 times, it does not work. And the crazy thing is, you have people in the streets trying to be that 1%, and it just doesn't work. Now, I don't want to offend nobody, but I got a word that came to me in 2004 called niggonometry.
Okay.
I had just got arrested for my friend's homicide, even though I had nothing to do with it, absolutely nothing. I wasn't there. They knew that. They just said he called me after it happened. So I had, you know, they put a charge on me. The judge threw that out, and parole violated me. So I was sitting in Camp Hill, just lost my store and everything, 2004, and I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. So that's why sometimes I have my greatest visions. So when this word came to me, I was like, I just stopped, and I was like, wow, God, help me understand. What is this word? Now, I'm looking at a dictionary and I'm saying nigga, according to the dictionary, is ignorant person, regardless of race, creed, or color.
Okay.
So you could be black, brown, white, Chinese, whatever. And usually when you're dealing with geometry, you're usually dealing with science and math. So when I compound these two words, niggonometry, so an ignorant person, math. An ignorant person's math. So when I start thinking like, okay, you sell drugs for 2 years and you got to go do 20 behind it, niggonometry, regardless of your race, creed, or color. You know what I'm saying?
That doesn't truly add up. It might look like it adds up when you see somebody cruising in that car, but when you really think of what you're losing, the relationships, the respect, the trust.
Yes. And your freedom.
It's not math that adds up.
Exactly. You got young kids today being sentenced to more years in prison than they've been on earth.
Mm. And they don't even realize when you're 18 and think you're going to live forever, you can't even wrap your head around what 40 years in prison is really like.
Exactly.
So what made you decide to write the book? I know you speak, you mentor. I mean, when God said, I've been knocking on your door all these years, you kept me with a foot in, but now I'm going to push the door all the way open and come fully back into your life. You had this moment of awakening. You could have gone back and opened up the stores again. You did go into the community and began speaking and mentoring and working with people. Why from DOC to CEO?
Well, what happened is, I don't know if you know, but I had opened the first black-owned African-American bookstore here years ago.
I did not know it was the first black-owned bookstore in York. Yes.
And a friend of mine from New Jersey, because I was connected with so many authors, he had a book from Incarceration to Incorporation. And I wanted to actually write then, but I was still selling drugs. And I was like, for me to do that, it would be like a hypocrite. And me and him had talked about it, so I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that now. And then I wound up getting busted 8 months later. Mm. So right then and there, I made the vow to myself that I'm going to change. And I started actually writing that in prison, because I said the first half was written in prison, and then as I came home and set up my businesses and stuff like that, I finished the second half, and that's what I teach people. That vision began in prison.
Wow.
And I literally started writing. I made a decision. That was 4 years ago. I have not cut not a single corner. I worked very hard to build my business the right way, and I started penning it from day one. As soon as they put them cuffs on me, I said it's time to change. And I started writing it then.
So now, what does life look like for you today?
Oh man, it's beautiful. I mean, it's chaotic because I still work my regular job at night. I run the publishing in the day. I don't know if you know, but I got my own line of bow ties coming out in December. I'm a senior in college, and I mentor at 4 different schools. And I help at least 10 ex-felons find employment every week.
Wow. Now that is a blessing and a ministry.
Thank you.
So what does a CEO look like for you? What is your vision for yourself? Is it just day by day? Are you waiting to see what unfolds? Or is there some place that you are convinced you are headed?
It's definitely a place where I'm convinced that I'm headed, which is, really just helping people on a global level. I have so many mothers from bad places like Chicago, where the killing is high, writing me now, where I've sent this book, where I send a lot of copies to Chicago. So I definitely see me, my tour kicks off next month. So I definitely see me headed somewhere, a place where just globally I'm helping so many people.
Mm. Well, that is something I just can't wait to see continue to unfold for you. Now, if people want to get a copy of this book, if they want to get in touch with you to have you come and speak with them, to have you come and share your story, how can people connect with this book and with you?
I have a lot of, a few different social media outlets. My friend Nate Knight is working on my website, so we'll be ready in about 3 weeks.
Wonderful.
Like I said, other than that, you can, through Facebook, Casper Hill, you can reach out to me directly. or you can get it from Amazon.
Wonderful.
Or, you know, certain bookstores does carry it too around the world.
Awesome. So you should absolutely make sure that you go to facebook.com/casper.hill.12, or you can find him on Instagram at author_Casper Hill, or absolutely go on Amazon and check out From DOC to CEO. But I promise you, Casper is all over York, and we are certainly going to soon be seeing a great deal more of him. So keep your eyes peeled, because big things are coming from this incredible author.
I first began writing my segment for this book while I was still incarcerated. I'm sure that may raise the question in some people's minds of how and why would you write a book about from DOC to CEO if you're incarcerated? The answer to the question is this: although I was incarcerated, I didn't have a life sentence. I knew in my heart that upon my release, I was going to advance full speed ahead towards corporate America. Also, I wanted to write my story of incarceration to incorporation from the inside to the outside. I've always incorporated different business ventures with the money that I earned from selling drugs, but as a result of selling drugs, I ended up incarcerated. For a long period of time, I kept a backward cycle of from CEO to DOC going, when it's supposed to be the other way around, obviously. I would sell drugs, take my profits, and invest it into some sort of business venture and get locked up shortly afterwards. Then I would come home and repeat the process, but with the hope of avoiding incarceration. Obviously, things didn't go according to plan. That is why, after my last arrest, I decided that my crazy cycle of from CEO to DOC had to change. It was time to change my life and correct the dysfunctional cycle and go from DOC to CEO. My last arrest occurred on March 4th, 2011. I was passing through Reading, PA on my way back to York, PA, and was pulled over by the police. After a brief search, the police discovered 3 pounds of marijuana in my vehicle, and from that point, I was arrested and hauled off to prison again. Bail was out of the question because I was currently on parole at the time from my last drug charge that I've been arrested for in October 2006. I had just gotten released January 17, 2010, and 14 months later, I was back in the belly of the beast. When I was arrested March 4th, I had 2 businesses, Urban Legends Bookstore and Urban Legends Clothing Store. I opened the bookstore in July 2010. It was the first Black-owned bookstore in the history of York, PA. Getting myself arrested had several people in the community disappointed with me because not only was it a one-of-a-kind in York, PA, but it also was a great service to the community. Since I didn't have anyone trustworthy to keep the bookstore up and running, it went defunct. This was upsetting to my devoted customers because before I opened the bookstore, they would travel into Baltimore, Philadelphia, or online to order books. They hated the idea of going back through that process, especially after I had made things so much better and easier for them. As I sat in my cell at the Reading, PA County Prison and the initial shock wore off, 98% of most criminals go through the shock phase. And as I accepted reality and began to make preparations to fight my case, I could hear the words of Proverbs 20:17 reverberating in my head, which clearly states, bread gained by deceit tastes sweet to a man, but in the end his mouth shall be filled with gravel. Those words kept playing over and over in my head, and I came to a place in my mind that it was time to wave a white flag to the street life. For years, people have been saying to me, Cash, you're way too intelligent to keep putting it all on the line in the streets. You could be doing so much more with your life. I always appreciated advice, but at that time, I just wasn't ready to quit. The original AZ from Harlem, New York released a DVD entitled Game Over. Throughout the DVD, he divulges the dark side of the game and really gives it up from a real point of view. Towards the end of the DVD, AZ goes on to say this about the street life. The music been stopped playing. I don't know why the heck is people still dancing. I must admit, I felt his words, but I must have heard music playing in my own head because I damn sure still wanted to dance with the streets. Even my good friend Antoine Inch Thomas said to me one day, as I had met up with him to pick up some books from my store, He said, Cass, I know you doing your thing on the side in the streets, but ain't nothing worth going back inside that cage. I can't express how real those simple words were to me from my childhood friend. However, he had just finished giving the federal penitentiary 10 years of his freedom, and at that moment in time, he was further along in his journey of change than I was. Not to mention, I still wanted to keep hustling to build myself a nice financial nest egg. Sometimes we, myself included, will get tunnel vision as we are chasing that paper. We'll only be able to see dollar signs, and the reality of all that we risk losing becomes distorted. The point I'm basically trying to make is sometimes our minds will be so deadlocked on making money that we'll push the thought of the positive factors to the back of our minds. All the reasons why we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. And it won't be until we get them platinum bracelets on our wrists that the more intelligent side of us resurfaces. We'll be sitting in a jail cell, kicking ourselves in the behind saying, damn, I'm smarter than this. I shouldn't have had to be sitting in that cold jail cell to feel the impact of my friend Inch's words. Between my religious beliefs, my freedom, my beautiful family, and my 2 businesses that needed me, I had more than enough reasons to leave that lifestyle behind. But that's where I had to mature in my thinking. After my last arrest, I had my ex contact my landlord from the clothing store and ask him if I could break my lease without any litigations due to my circumstances. She informed me that he agreed to let me out of the lease, but she also told me how he cried on the phone. She said he literally began crying on the phone as they was talking because before I leased the property from him, it had been sitting unoccupied for quite some time. The previous renter had succumbed to cancer, and after his unfortunate passing, along with the struggling economy, the landlord had been unable to rent the property until I came along. The broker that managed the property for the landlord informed me that before they leased the property to me, there would be a few things that I needed to get done. Things like transfer the utilities in my name, get renter's insurance, etc., etc. I completed everything that they asked of me and signed the lease for the clothing store November 1st, 2010. I developed a great working relationship with the broker and the landlord. But unbeknownst to either of them, I was still selling drugs in the streets. They believed I was just a happy bookstore owner trying to gradually work my way up the corporate ladder. That's why they were both devastated when I was arrested a few months later on drug charges. When my ex explained to me that the landlord cried on the phone to her because I needed to break my lease, I was almost just as hurt for letting my landlord down as I was for losing my freedom in my 2 businesses. That's one of the major reasons why I decided to change. Going back to prison did not only hurt myself, I hurt a great deal of other people in the process as well. I don't just mean my beautiful 5 children that Almighty God blessed me with or my loving family. I mean, I hurt people that depended on my businesses to feed their families as well. People such as the contractors, the painters, the vendors, and my employees. The list goes on of people who come together to help to ensure the success of my business. That's why it's very important for us to keep in mind that our actions don't only affect us, but it affects the lives of others. When I decided that selling drugs and self-destruction was no longer on my list of options, I began my process of self-aggrandizement. Education, meditation, studying, career planning, writing, and basically everything conducive to my life's much-needed overhaul. I began making preparations for my re-entry into the real world while I was still incarcerated. I knew life would be harder for me this time around, being that I didn't have drug money as a security blanket as I had in the past. Truthfully speaking, I felt in my heart that I had something greater in my corner. I had a loving God that patiently waited for me to get my act together so that he could bless me in any endeavor that I put my hands on. I started penning my version of incarceration to incorporation as I sat in my jail cell because there wasn't even a shadow of doubt in my mind that upon my release, I would incorporate. I knew I definitely had a story to tell and a plethora of knowledge to share. I truly believed that my journey could help others look at their life with a new set of eyes and make changes in their own lives. That way, my trials, my tribulations, and my triumphs didn't only help me grow, but it helped others grow and self-aggrandize. To me, that's a form of giving back, which is something that I'm truly passionate about. In his book titled Do You, Russell Simmons said, if you want to be successful in life, help someone else achieve success. That's exactly what I plan to do by doing everything in my power that help others get their lives back on track. A few years ago, I met author J.M. Benjamin through my friend Antoine Inch Thomas at the Harlem Book Fair. J.M. Benjamin and I communicated periodically afterwards, and I had purchased some of his books from my store. As I was sitting in my store one day, I picked up his book titled Incarceration to Incorporation and began reading it. It turned out to be a great read. The title and the content helped me birth the idea of writing my own story of incarceration to incorporation. After all, why not? I was in prison and I got out and incorporated. I did time, and now that I was home, I was incorporated. I was actually sitting behind the counter of my bookstore incorporated, so why not tell my story? Then I could approach J.M. Benjamin about the idea, but the book wouldn't have been sincere because I was still selling drugs in the streets. Also, in my heart, that's being a hypocrite, which is something that I am not. Lastly, I got arrested on this last case about 8 months after I met J.M. Benjamin, so the book wouldn't have been available and I wouldn't have been able to do any book signings while following the necessary steps that it would have taken to ensure the success of the book. But the most important thing, as I stated earlier, is that the book wouldn't have been sincere, and to me that isn't cool. I would have gotten no personal fulfillment from that. However, the pages ahead contain my life, my struggles, and my triumphs on this journey to entrepreneurship.
Joining us on another amazing episode of Spotlight, a production of Culture in Maine, York's cultural showcase. We want to hear your ideas, and we want you to be a part of the show. Whether you're an artist or a fan, send us an email to cultureinmaine@gmail.com. Check us out on the web at wrct.tv, or make sure to find all of our past episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/White Rose Community TV. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great week. We'll see you soon, right here on the corner of Culture in Maine.
Now